our capacity for rooting and gravity and having weight in yoga. No, we're celebrating Sam's imminent departure. He's been with us for a month. So what we're going to do today is actually pick up the themes that we went over last time in the last class, mostly because they're key to a lot of the things we've done, and it's a very good little sequence and to take with you into the summer. So we'll just start lying on the floor. You can have your legs bent, you can have your legs straight. And we'll just begin with the reality that the invitation of being embodied is a reminder that ebbs and flows through our day, reminding us that we are actually very near to ourselves. And but we forget, because we're very visual and verbal, and the brain is always trying to figure out if it should turn left or right or go up or down. So we start to separate off, and distance sets in. And then you can see it's in our language, it's in our theology, it's in our management of relationships. We love to use the word boundary. So we kind of distance off. And then we actually forget how near we are and how authoritative we are about our own embodiment, even though science has lots to say and a doctor may give you good advice, or a therapist, or a grandparent. But actually, it's very close to be you. And so the trick in developing a movement practice for yourself is really to begin with this piece of vocabulary, nearness. So if you start always lying on the floor in a very particular way and lining yourself up, you see you're already looking at yourself. So you're beginning to be at one remove. Whereas if you just start standing because you're in the shower or you're bending forward to the kitchen walk and you're not when you do, then to me it seems like another body. So there you are, lying on the floor, and there are no rules. You could have started sitting or standing. You're just on the ground. And in fact, just to start, open up in your imagination whether it seems to you that you are lying on the ground, that you are putting your weight on the ground, or whether it seems to you that the ground is coming up to meet your weight. Just play with that. Is it me putting my weight on the ground? And or is the ground like the palm of a hand coming up to meet the sparrow that's landing on? Visually, we think we're walking on the ground. But the reality of embodiment in gravity is that it's not really that way. We're touching the ground and the ground is touching us. I look at you and you look at me. It's impossible for me just to touch you without you touching me unless I'm blocking and closing things off. So, and as you do that, let your head, your heavy head on the ground, gently wobble from side to side, just easy. So you're heavy, you're on the ground is coming up to meet you. You've opened up any pre-setting to the direction for that. Ground meeting me meeting ground. The soup of gravity is through everything. And I'm just letting my head wobble. And as I let the head wobble, I am turning on or waking up my gravity organ, which is the function of the inner ear with its little stones that roll around on these curly seabeds of hair. And they are the things that allow us to sense the up and the down, the putting of weight on the ground or the being met by ground, displacement in space, acceleration. So just this heavy head wobbling, the eyes may be open, the eyes may be closed. And as you let your head wobble, you can come to rest every now and again, so movement and then resting. Just notice if you're holding your mouth closed, if you're keeping your teeth together, or if you're holding your lips together. Yeah, and they may remain together, the lips, but just let go of the lower jaw from the upper jaw. Yeah, so through cultivating nearness, which is not a positional thing at all, doesn't mean nearer than far, doesn't mean how many centimeters, it's really an attitude. And in fact, that's what posture is. It's a potential for what I want to do in my life. If I've got to push a grand piano or carry a kid on my hip, or dig, or paint something very refined, my whole system's going to align itself to that. So just being near, letting the head wobble every now and again, letting it pause, noticing the breath then moving through your body. Yeah, so we open the door, the little gate of nearness, and we find ourselves in the garden of the body. And then, instead of going to shape, and that's the problem with yoga, really. It's beautiful, all the shapes, but you shouldn't be looking at the shapes. Yeah. Instead of going to shape, open up to yourself the sense of how is the weightedness of me today? So that could be where am I heavy right now? Is it my head? Is it my bum? Is it my legs? Is it one side of my body, the back of my tongue? So where do you go as you open up to heaviness? Yeah. Where do you go? Where do you go in the body? And then noticing the story. So we all have story around the things we perceive. I like my weight, I don't like my weight. I was embarrassed about my weight once in front of a group of people. Who knows? So we have story. I love being the immovable rock. No one can budge me, whatever it might be. I like to be a feather in the wind. Yeah, so where do you go in terms of your weightedness in your body? Yeah, and just noticing the ebb and flow of any story as you lie here on the ground, breathing, letting the head wobble from time to time. And then swallow a few times, notice the inside of the mouth, notice the back of the eyes, notice how things are shifting. Yeah, notice how the sense of self and time and afternoon is shifting. Yes, yawning. Okay. Okay, so we're going to let the legs bend, and I just want to review. We've done this often. So you basically have two options. If you just bend your legs at the knee, yeah, what happens is you make a strong flexing movement in the front of your leg. Just you bend your leg. You can try that. I bend my leg and I bend my leg, and it pulls on the upper body. Yeah. So try this as well. Just watch me for a moment. So instead of bending and lifting and plonking, which is fine, try to let your leg roll out, turn out, and then drag it on the floor. You can get off the yoga mat if it's in your way, and just explore dragging the leg up. Put your hands on your belly, and then letting the leg slide down. Dragging the leg up. Letting the leg slide down. Yeah. So when we move the leg, especially in flexion, when we fold it forward, we're pulling on things that are behind the organ space of the lower belly. And they're very, it's a pathway that's linked to the life of emotions and facial expression and social interaction, the pathway of the psoas, the big deep flexor that goes from your lower vertebrae onto your upper. And so we're making the slidey, bendy, arrivey, rocky, returny, slidey movement. That's it. Your hands are touching your belly, you can caress. You might be yawning. We're just sitting next to, inside, near each other, ourselves. Yeah. And bringing the leg up is nice and important, but actually the moment where the leg slides back down is the most important moment. And it's as if your legs are getting longer and longer. You're having an Alice in Wonderland moment. Longer and longer. The leg, the way we bind and tuck our legs up into our bodies is being let go of. And you can also let your hands slide from the belly down onto the thighs and the groiny adductor spaces. Yeah, and we come back. If the mat is causing you to pick up your feet and get it out of the way, yeah, that looks very nice. So have a rest, have a quiet, getting longer and longer moment when the leg is released down and you're breathing and you're just listening into, yeah. So the impact that these huge muscles have on the balloon of the torso is huge. We don't realize it, but they pull and they pull and they shorten. And usually it's in a torsion. So usually as we get more and more compact, we're kind of twisting it. So the breath, yeah, that's very nice. Do it a few more times. Maybe 200 or 300 more times. Yeah. Yeah, that's David, that's great. And that's one of the things I was working on. I was in here. I was getting you to go this way. Or whatever it is that way. And the reason it gets stronger and stronger is that these things just take over. So it pulls and it's slow. Yeah. Beautiful. Heavy, and of course these windy, slidey movements create ripples up through the body, and you're not defending or protecting. Hey, it's even better without this. Lift your feet. So I saw you, yeah. So you're letting it slide, and then you're letting that's it. The minute your leg slides out, your pelvis will tip, and there'll be a rotatory, snaky, slithery things going up your spine. That's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, you just got longer. Yeah. Great. So on your way back, yeah, let me take the mat out of the way. So on your way back, here, now that's it. And then don't lift it off the ground. And then bring it back. Yeah. And so what are you moving? It's not your leg. You're moving a weighted thing. Yes. And the weighted thing doesn't know how to come off the ground. Right. You could do some less wide ones. Okay, and then we'll do just a few more with sound. Leg coming up or leg going down. Let's do it without the neck. It's really the sound and the leg are doing the same thing. And really notice if there's this moment where you want to lift your leg off the ground and just inhibit that, just allow it not to be. That's good. And the groin and the leg and the belly and the spine and the bone and the tissue, the soft and the hard, soft and hard. When we're far from our embodied selves, we have the feeling that the hard is telling everything what to do. But it's wrong. It's really not the reality. The soft was there before the hard. Bones came later. If there's a hole in a bone for a nerve to go through, the nerve was there before, and the bone formed around that. So our bones need to remember that they're actually listening to the soft. The powerful, bouncy, resilient part of us is the soft bed of the body, which is all the organs and all these vessels and tissues which span, and the water. Okay, let's just, so those were the legs, and however many legs you have to do 300 of these for every leg. So if you've got 144 legs, that could take quite a while, quite a long practice. You have to be committed. But we have upper legs, so just put your awareness in your right arm, and you're just going to let your right arm be noticed and heavy, and it's on the ground, and then you're going to let that right arm move away from the central river of your body, the head to tail thingy, and you're going to let it expand out on the ground and travel around on the ground, so it's heavy. So yeah, it could go out, it could be more like a stick or water. Yeah, and it's going to go up or down, and of course, keep it on the ground for a moment. Of course, it could be palms up or palms down, up to the elbow or higher up to the shoulder. So just playing with that. Yeah. Don't force anything because there's a range of movement as you get higher, which is not possible. Yeah, and feel the weight of the arm. Now the opposite leg is going to turn out and come back up, and you're going to put the foot on the floor. The opposite leg to the arm you're playing with. So you have, for example, your left leg is bent, foot on the ground, making roots aware, and your right arm is opening, traveling, you're breathing, swallowing, the head is rocking. Everything is easy. The foot is supporting as the arm is traveling out. Yeah. So before we had a hand on the groin, now you could take your opposite arm, the one that's not working, and put it across on the ribs of the working arm side. Breastbone, belly, ribs, armpit. And as you open up diagonally across, just touching in. It can be very soft and watery and minor key. It can be a big stretchy movement, whatever. Yeah. And the weight is landing on the ground. The ground is coming up to meet the weight. The breath is ebbing and flowing, but we're not telling it what to do. Yeah, and we're just opening up leg to arm, arm to leg, which is what we are, leg arms, arm legs. Breath, organs, water, coming to rest, beginning to move again. Yeah. Breath, sound, if you want. And then when you're ready, that leg slides down, and then the other arm or the other leg arrange themselves. It's really up to you. Yeah. Stay, don't do the shape. Stay with the weight and the way we were moving. Yeah, there's a foot and it can be grounded if you want, and then there's an arm that's moving on the ground. And of course, it's opening up all these spaces, which is what a joint is. It's spaces. That's it. Heavy. There's ribs, there's a shoulder girdle, there's an arm with all its parts, there's weight, there's a way in which it's moving on the ground, the breath. And there's a link, you're just building a very natural link between that foot and the opposite, yeah. That's it. And then we'll bend both legs. Yeah, and just take a moment with your arms very wide and both legs, just to feel where you are and what's happening, what's changing. So we're near, and it's not a position, and it's not measurable. We're remembering. And the ebb and the flow of the relationship between sensing weight and the undulation of breath is a very natural thing that we can lose touch with. And then we go somewhere and then we're told how we should breathe. And so then another layer gets put in. Yeah, so just open to the fact that when we breathe out, the air can leave anywhere. Imagine, through your nostrils, through your anus, through your toenails, through the tip of your hair, through the back of your head. Imagine that air can go out anywhere, and all at once. And that, you know, it's like a bucket full of water and you turn it over and all the water falls out. The bucket doesn't keep some. And you don't need to push the air, but we are forgetting how to really empty when we breathe. And it's a pity because it causes tension and we pass that tension around. But out breath it's an emptying. The more we let the ground catch us and be there, the more the breath empties. And then, of course, at the end of the out breath, there's this infinitesimal space. And then the wave comes back. It's really like the wave on a beach. The wave goes out, and as it goes out, it's already gathering momentum to return, but it really goes out. And then you don't need to breathe in. It's as if we are being breathed. It's a very deep response to life. It's chemical. So the breath comes in, and then we empty again, and we're on the ground. Yeah. Okay, so you have big feet on the ground, wide arms, heavy head, spine, tail, heavy organs. Just how you are, you don't need to be all lined up. Okay, so now we're going to open the head to tail pathway, and we'll do that by just beginning to play with imagining a tail. So you know that you have the sacrum and this coccyx, and it does not stick out of your underwear. But today it does start to do that. So you're starting to develop a tail. A long, bushy wolf's tail or whatever you want. So open the sense of length, and the imaginary process actually does have an immediate impact on perception. So immediately your imaginary tail lengthens and the whole tone of your spine starts to change. That's why we read poetry and go and see dance, and because it's actually having an impact on us. In fact, that's also why we applaud, because we want to participate. Yeah, so the tail is growing long. And then that tail, don't change anything in the upper body, but the tail begins to go up towards the sky. And your feet begin to support that in a kind of push. And it's as if the tail is being taken up and you feel your pelvis tip. And the tail starts to come off the floor. But don't think Jane Fonda or Pilates or anything like that. Don't get the movement right. Just that's it, Jonathan. And the tail goes up and the feet push down. And as the tail, but not this and not this, just this, the tail. And as it goes up, the knees reach a bit. So they participate with the tail. And then you can let that accelerate. That's beautiful. And the tail goes up. The pelvis comes off the floor. And you go flying up. Flying up. Flying up. I have to get louder as I go away from the microphone. Flying up. The tail goes up. That's it. And just notice how high up your spine you go. Don't effort. You don't need to stay there too long. It travels easier. Yeah. And then you're hanging. The tip of your tail is caught by a flock of doves. And they're just holding on to it. And you're literally hanging from there. And then they land you back down. Vertebra by vertebra. So they land you back down, that flock of angels, and you land all the way down. So now everything is different along the landscape of your rivery spine. Yeah, that was beautiful. And eventually the whole of your tail has landed. And then before you know it, and there's nothing you can do about it, the tail begins to take off again. Yes. So that's it. Try not to start somewhere else, grinding teeth, furrowing brows, tightening in the belly. Just the tail, that's it. Feet, huge feet on the ground. And you let the tail take you. Yeah. It could make you smile. Yeah. It's kind of the most wonderful, pointlessly waste of time, gorgeous thing. And you're literally flying across the landscape. And people are looking up and they can see you flying from your tail. And it's quite marvelous. In Poland, everyone can see. And you're flying. And then you're deposited back down. Try not to go down with your tail first. You don't need to be, quote unquote, slow about it. Just come down in reverse. That's it. And let everything land. Let everything land. And let the two legs slide out one by turning out like we did before. One turns out and gets long. And long and long and long and long. Yeah. And just stay there for a moment. Just feel what's changing. Yeah. So by being near and contacting the weight and noticing the relationship between the weight and the pendulation of the breath, we actually, the whole tone of the body changes. It's visible on the floor, all of you. Yeah, and it's very profound, very profound. Yeah, it's not what you can do by effort and musculation. It's a tonal change that does not arrive to any kind of brain message. It's a direct link between the spine and the tone of muscles. We forget, we think that it's me moving my muscles. But the deep tonal changes Don't go through the knowing and the willing. Like you're at the airport and the beloved comes around the corner and the whole tone of you changes, that you don't do that in your head. It happens at this deep gravity nearness garden level. Okay, so again, that's why we're not just gonna flex and lift the leg, we're gonna do that turn-outy, slidey thing just for now. Different if you have to sprint to catch the bus, but we're gonna let one leg turn out and slide up, and then the other leg turn out and slide up. And as both feet get landed, the tail starts to fly up again in your own time. And as the tail starts to fly up, the arms begin to take off from the fingertips. So the spine flies up from the tail, and the arms take off skywards from the fingertips. That's it, Jonathan. Just keep going, yeah. And so your spine is flying, your arms are flying from the fingertips. And what's left really are the upper vertebrae, especially ribs 1 and 2, where we all have these amazing traffic jams. Yeah, and your heart is starting to rest against the vertebrae. And you're flying up, flying up. Scottish people fly a lot higher than this. You're flying way up, way up. Your mouth is soft. Your arms stay skyward now. So you're hanging from your tail and your fingertips. That's 11 tails. You're hanging, but the tail starts to come down, but not the arms. So you're hanging from your fingers, and the whole of the front of your chest starts to soften and melt as the spine lands. Landing. Yeah, there's always going to be some kind of acceleration, so it shouldn't be uniform slowness. That starts to be Japanese kabuki, which is a whole other thing. Could do that next week. And leave your arms there, and your tail takes off, and your feet are huge, and the ground is there, and you're not watching yourself, and there's no selfie. That's beautiful. And you go flying up, and the whole of not only your chest, but your face is softening. You're way up, way up. Let yourself go higher and higher and higher and higher. And this time, stay there for a moment. But this time the arms go up and over to the floor above your head. Accommodate if your shoulders are bothered by this. This is going to be a very, very, very high movement. Yeah, it's a very wonderful movement for those top vertebrae. Yeah, when you're there, the arms release completely. And how is your knee? So, this is a surprising movement to the body and the spine. You can, if you can't relax your arms, just widen them a tad. That looks beautiful. Yeah, that looks great. Okay, now the spine will come down, but try not to get into fixing your arms. Just leave them in this new place. It's rare that the tissue of the upper ribs and neck and all the front lining of the throat is moved in this way. So hang out, unless your shoulders are hurting you. If they are, widen them a little. How is that? You don't need to say. And then, so you can decide, I want to be like this, or I also want to feel what happens if I just relax a bit. Yeah. And I just, you feel the difference. So you can play with more pulling the pasta for the pizza or less. Same here. Yeah, you feel? Yeah. Don't tuck your chin in. Just let your head be where it wants to be. Okay, so the arms are here. Your arms are like these long lungs that have become arms. Like your lungs are like salmon that have swum up into your arms. So your arms are breathing. And you're not retracting that, which we do all day long We are shortening around the breastbone in order to be socially okay, but we're just letting that be open. And we have these long, lung arms, long and heavy, and we're letting this new position be, but the tail begins to take off again. Huge feet, huge, that was beautiful. And let the tail go up, let it sail up, and you don't need to think about what you're negotiating, just kind of enjoy the ride. Yeah. Let the mouth relax, yes, beautiful. So, yeah, and the higher you go, it's because something's taking your tail, not because you're testing yourself or forcing anything. So just, I think a little wider ends up, I'm not sure, you can tell me, but can be more comfortable, yeah. Otherwise you go like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that. And you go higher, yes, how is that? And we leave the arms there, they have their own weight, and we're hanging from the tail as we come back down. As we come back down, letting the whole chest, lung, heart, arm hang out there on the ground. And leave yourself there for a few breaths. If it's bothering your arms, call me over. And if you're at home, what I would do is put a bit of support in the back of the arms if you're feeling stuck. And if it's here, call me and I'll bring. That's it, John. Is that good? This is such a great one, actually. You can do like that. Yeah. Are you okay? Do you want something or are you fine on something? Breath. Every breath is allowing that rib to arm world, lung to heart to throat, just to open. As we get older, we start to feel that my tail is not moving anymore and my shoulders are all screwed up. And you go to the doctor and you say, I have shoulder pain or low back pain. And they say, well, it's because you're older. But that's rubbish. It's because we don't move. That's really the thing. So we could be, doing this till the moment when we drop dead. It's that we move less and less. Less and less does the tail make wild, dancey, lizardy movements. And so, then the body struggles. More and more we're falling into our phones. Yeah, it's beautiful. This is a very profound, deep movement of the upper spine. Most human beings have huge traffic jams around the first and the second rib, repercussions that then hang out about the tail or vice versa. Wonderful. So in a moment, in a few breaths, it's up to you. We're going to come round to hands and knees, but don't have the picture of that. Necessarily pick your head up as the first thing you do, but kind of go to slush over onto one side as you, that's it, and going over onto your hands and knees. So you don't need to pick the head up, and there's lots of ways of doing it. Heavy, rolly, yeah. Great, and then you're on your hands and knees, however you got there, take your time. Yeah. That's great. And if your knees bother you, I can bring you some soft padding for your knees. Yeah. So, great. Take your time. So you're on your hands and knees. Let your head be heavy. Let your tail be long and heavy. In fact, your head is starting to grow antlers or branches. Yeah. So you have length coming out your tail, length coming out your head. Yeah. And then we're going to, and do this in your own way. We're just going to come up to standing. So find your way how you're going to do that. And you don't need to engage with everyone just yet. So one foot comes forward or whatever, we come up to standing, and then just take what's standing and just move it about the room. Go for a walk, stop and look out the window of your living room. Breathing, near. Yeah. And if you're in a group, you don't need to engage right away. So it's up to you. We all do this very differently. You may just want to be in your own space, or you may want to engage. That's it. So just taking what got long and open into standing and then into walking. Yeah, and then, so we've done this often. When you walk, there's a few things to play with. The first is not only gazing at the ground, so that's wonderful, but also gazing out or letting the out gaze at you, so not just that. And then stopping and starting, that's also so helpful. So much in ordinary life we do this. We stop and then we start again. So walking, stopping, starting, noticing where the gaze is, and then accelerating. Yeah. And there I'll just propose that with the acceleration is let your toes help you and let your limbs swing. That's how you do it, doesn't matter. But yeah, so there's toes and swinging. And then stopping, making sure the gaze hasn't gone back to the ground. And then walking and swinging, and then you do notice people and you do engage, and that's fine, yeah. And then the acceleration can come from the toes, so we can go a little faster. Yeah. So everyone here is swinging, so I don't see all that pumpy, flexy, normal stuff that makes us short and grumpy. Yeah, there's a lot of swinging and landing and flowing. Yeah, very sweet and stuff. Yeah, okay. So we'll come back to our mats. Yep. Okay, I hope that was okay. Yeah. So let's come down to kneeling. Yeah, so we did a very simple thing until now, everyone. And we've done so many variations of this, but what can I do not to stretch myself into length? That's why people go to yoga, right? When will I be able to touch my toes? We did something else. We used some images to let the world and gravity and the ground actually make us longer, because it's so natural to let go. And then when we were walking around, it was evident. We were like, this thing had opened up. And we did it mostly, we were lying on our backs and we were bending this way mostly. So now we're going to bend the other way, which is a deep need for our bodies today. We need to recover the mystical back bend. So we're going to be like this, and we're going to turn the toes under. This may feel a bit structured, a bit more structured, but the flow is the same. The flow is the same. We're near, there's no fear of getting this wrong. I'm using images because that's what you would use. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, you can see that we could all decide to be very still, to stop your movement, right? Why? Because we have girdles, mainly the shoulder girdle and the pelvic girdle. And the girdles are there to block the flow. Because sometimes we need that. Like if I didn't want you to see my emotion, I would stop it. We do that all. Or if I had to push something very heavy, again, I would put a bar. So otherwise I'd be like, oh, why is this grand piano not moving? I would block it and push. So we can do that. We can do that. But we overdo, and then we don't realize it's there all the time. It's just there or there. So we could be very still or let go. let go, and just let the whole thing start to move. Yeah. And if you do this in public, people will think you're weird. And if you did this at school as a kid, your teacher very quickly would have told you to sit still. So we don't value this. We don't think this is so appropriate. But it's actually so important that we can play with the whole range. Yeah. So you can really take off. You can flow. That looks great, John. Yeah. The bum and the shoulders can go opposite or the same. And you notice that the weight is pouring through different parts of your hands, knees, and feet. Great. Most of you now have let go of the belly and are hanging down. And then from there, I saw lots of you rising up, the spine rising to the sky, the head and tail dropping. Very good. So come back to the middle. Find a balance between being still and moving. Okay. So we're just going to lean back into our bums. This toes are bent. And I'm just leaning back. I'm leaning back into my sit bones. And as I lean back, I know, you may actually feel it, it's a micro movement, but I know that my sit bones are widening. So as I lean back, my sit bones are widening and the back of my pelvic floor is releasing open. And the anus is relaxing, and I know that I'm contributing to world peace. Yeah. Yeah. Leaning back, and come back up. So often in yoga, you go back and what you've been told to do child pose, which is this. But I bypass my sit bones almost immediately, and I'm no longer having this effect, which is important for the spine. So instead of going all the way into child pose, I'm leaning back, and my sit bones are widening, and it's as if my squirrel's tail now, from a wolf to a squirrel, my squirrel's tail seems to be going up. It's the squirrel of world peace. Yeah. And so I've leaned back and I'm just letting the back of the pelvic floor release. My toes are away. And at some point, my elbows and my forehead may go to the floor. And of course, if you lean back too far, so Sam, you should come up just a little more forward. There. Yeah, you don't want to lean too far back. That's it. Yeah, Amelia, that's better. Even a tiny bit more forward. Yes, that's it. And then your bum is in the air, your tail is flying, you've let your spine hang down, and you're letting the weight pour into your elbows and forehead. Yeah. So you can tell me if it's uncomfortable, but let's say there. Is that okay? And these are the sit bones. Now, you're just going to drop off. Yeah. Drop off. Is that all right? Yeah. That's it. And then check. Some of you need to check because you really put a lot of protection and support into shoulders. Check that the shoulder gates have opened and the weight is going to the elbows. That's huge, wide sit bones dropping through. If the shoulders are not happy, you can widen them. Yeah, that's good. And then after you've been there for a while, just turn the head one way and hang out in that direction. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Breath, dropping through. And then the other way. Yeah. Yeah. And if you're over 60, you shouldn't stay too long with your head and then change head direction. Letting your body. Okay, so we're not going to pick ourselves up and come back to the beginning. From here, your toes decide that they're going to push your magnificent antlers forward and up into the forest space where the others can see the antlers. So you come forward and up onto your hands, coming forward and through huge antlers, big hands on the ground. And this push from the toes and reach from the antlers brings you forward, and the chest opens, and you decide how much you want to drop through. It's up to you. But awake toes, that's it all the way through. And now my hands begin to push, and my tail begins to go up, and my antlers go down. And then my toes push, and my antlers begin to go up. Yeah, bypass your buttocks and belly muscles and back muscles. Hands to tail, toes to antlers, hands to tail, and yeah, that was great. So your voice will be very resonant. You're either resonant or tight ass. Either resonant or tight ass. One or the other. Through and back and through. Yes, and that's great. Push from the toes, and that's beautiful, Henry. And the head, that's it here. The head comes through. And then you push from the hands, and the tail comes through. Yeah, that's great. Great. Beautiful. And this time, instead of the head coming through, the toes push, and the bum starts to go up, and then you find that you've come up onto your hands, and you're hanging from your bum. It's the opposite of hanging the other way, which we did with the doves, the angel doves. And you're very high up on your toes. Your toes are completely bended, especially the big toe. And you're way up there, way bending, flossing into that big toe. But you're hanging from your tail. That's it. And then let's explore legs getting completely straight, toes up, heels up, and drop through here. No, stay up here, but drop through there. Yeah. Up. So legs getting straight, and then knees bending. Stay up on the toes. Legs getting straight, and knees bending. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, stay up with your bum there and through here.
If I bend my knees, my bum comes down.
No, it doesn't.
No,
it doesn't come down. Look, it's staying up. That's lovely. Yes. Walk forward with your hands there, David. Walk forward. Yes. It's more about here. Yeah. That's it. And then, beautiful. And then we'll just close with what we did last time. So you can obviously come down and rest. But when you're up here, and you're really, this is the most important place, right there, bending there. Rather than putting the heels on the floor, you see what that does? It closes and bends and pulls. So for the moment, we're here and we have bent or straight legs. And I'm really opening this pathway up the front of the spine. And then I just let one leg fly up. And then have a look. When you're up here, you can make a little turn like that. And you need to know that you could get arrested for doing this, but it's worth it. So really fly with the leg. Don't look at the shape. That's beautiful. Don't look at the shape. Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah. Just through. Yes, and it flies up. Yeah. Failing into blossom. Yeah, definitely. So do all of the legs. Beautiful, beautiful. Flying up. Flying up. That's so beautiful. So we don't see muscle, we just see ground and space. That's great. The ground and the space, the roots and the wind. Yes. Yeah, see, you're going to get a phone call from the Moulin Rouge saying you have a job.
I already have a job.
You already have a job at the Moulin Rouge? Oh, great.
At the Moulin Rouge.
That's
unsustainable.
That's amazing, David.
They have a gasoline in my left foot.
You do. You always have. You always have. You're like a cello. I could be playing the cello.
Just mind which string you play.
Here we go. This is it. That's it. Open your hands. Yeah. Great. Great. Huge hands. Huge feet. Yeah, huge. Yeah. You will inadvertently mobilize all these parts of your spine. That's amazing. Okay, ambulance. Please. Okay. Okay, and then we'll just come back down, widen your knees if you want, and just rest, folded forward. Yeah. Resting, breathing, folding. Have a few breaths and then lie on the floor again. Just give yourself a moment just to let the spine drape itself over your organs. Yeah, just, as you need. And if you do want to be on your backs, we'll close with this passive twisting motion. You can do it in your own time, where you're on your backs, your legs are bent, and they fall over to the left or the right. Don't go into the movement, the shape of it. Just give yourself time to come back to the floor, and then, yeah. And then really hang out there for a moment. Yeah. Yeah. So the wide feet, as the legs fall over, it doesn't need to get all symmetrical. It'll be quite asymmetrical, but logical to your body. So just let that be. The ground, the oscillation of the breath, the movement and shifts of time and space, more contracted, more open. The memories and all of those puddles of memory and feeling that come from the middle brain, making themselves felt as you move and make space. And the deep reptilian brain just signaling that you're safe and you have time and no one's judging or evaluating. Just quiet participation. Okay. So thank you, everyone. And thanks all of you coming to the class on Zoom. I always come over and look at the list of everyone, and it's lovely to see you all and recognize you all. So wishing you a wonderful week. See you next week. Bye.